Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. Now, we know for a fact that the world of sport never really sleeps, even whilst we're catching up on some all important rest. There are a few things that may be happening that might be of some interest to you, and that's exactly why we join you at this time of the morning to catch you up on things that may have happened, which you may have missed out on whilst you were actually catching up on some sleep. So, without further ado, let's just quickly check in with the all important news that has been doing the rounds. And one of the first things that we're going to be talking about is the Border Gavaskar Trophy that is, of course, upcoming. And so there's been a lot of chatter from all sides of this particular rivalry, from cricket commentators, experts, former players, you name it, and they're all talking about what exactly it is that their respective teams could be doing to actually let's say seal the series. And now former Australian captain Ian Chappell has actually said something rather interesting regarding what it is that India should be trying to do when it comes to actually keeping the Australians quiet and actually potentially winning the series. In essence, a challenge not only to the likes of Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma, but also even the bowlers too. So how exactly is that the case? Well, what he said when he wrote in a column for Cricinfo, he said that one of the main tasks for Indian players like Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli and Cheteshwar Pujara will be to establish mental superiority over Nathan Lyon. If Australia can't rely on Lyon claiming regular wickets at an acceptable rate, their bowling will then depend greatly on the big three, that of course being the Pacers, Cummins, Stark, and Hazelwood. The main task for India's bowlers will be to find a way to keep the heavy scoring Steve Smith quiet. If India are able to limit Smith and Lyon's success, they will be on the way to winning matches. Now, it might sound like he's stating the obvious a little bit here, but this Australian team have shown that they have the ability to win test matches across formats. Although, if you're India, you are definitely thinking that if you can keep the like of Smith and Leon quiet, then you do at least stand a chance. Especially considering that subcontinent style pitches for test matches, you're going to be they are going to be very reliant on Nathan Lyon. So you keep him quiet. That might seem like half the battle won, but the big three might just conjure up something too. Who really knows? Sticking to cricket news, you'd all remember that the recent T20I that took place at Lucknow between India and New Zealand saw a rather low scoring affair which has divided opinions as to what exactly a quote unquote acceptable pitch is. Hardik Pandya certainly didn't seem to think that was an acceptable pitch at all. In fact, he slammed it as a quote unquote shocker. And it apparently seems like the powers that we agree with him, because the curator for that particular pitch has now been sacked. So sources in have told the Indian Express that the curator had actually prepared two black soil pitches in advance for that particular match, but a last minute request had come in, and due to that they prepared a red a fresher pitch that was instead made from red soil. Now, what actually happened in that particular case was that the pitch, because they had to make it so quickly, it was not prepared properly. It was made on short notice, and that meant that the conditions in hand were even slower than what people would have been expecting. So that's the reason, in case you're wondering why exactly that pitch was that slow. It's because it was apparently prepared at the behest of a request at the last minute to make a fresh pitch. Well, the fresh pitch actually wasn't that fresh because it was underprepared, and that's why we got the turning track and a low scoring thriller in many ways. Although I personally, as you guys would know if you watched yesterday's dugout, wasn't a big fan of the pitch, but your mileage may vary. Speaking of course, continuing on the cricket news, Steve Smith has in fact claimed the Allen Border Medal, which is of course the Cricketer of the Year trophy, which is given at the Australian Cricket Awards. And he's now in fact become, only the third player to have won it four times. Don't forget, he won it previously in 2015, 2018, and 2021. Now he's won it the fourth time this year, and he's now the third player to win it four times. Ricky Ponting has done it before, as has Michael Clark, but Smith, in very illustrious company, having won that award. He the next second highest person who got number of votes was Travis Head. He got 144. Smith was the winner. He got 171 votes when it comes to deciding who gets the Allen Border Medal. Now, sticking again to cricket news, but there's been a lot of chatter about the Pakistan Cricket Board hiring Mickey Arthur as a quote-unquote online coach. Now, a lot of y'all would be asking, regardless, what does an online coach do? And it would appear that you're not really alone, because Shahid Afridi, who's been appointed as an interim advisor for the selection committee, himself, when confronted with this, said he had no idea what was going on here. He could have as good as said what is an online coach, and we'd all be agreeing with him. His exact quote, though, I'll read it out for you. He says that, well, even I don't know what type of coaching will happen or what the plan is. The concept of online coaching by a foreign coach for the national team is beyond comprehension. In fact, he said very clearly, look, why even only look for a foreign coach? Pakistan do have good coaches here, and I know that the PCB also takes into consideration where the person is presently involved in politics. But all of these things should be kept aside in cricket so that we get a person who can take the tough calls, which eventually makes a good team. Now, again, there's been a lot of banter which has been thrown around regarding an online coach, and it does seem likely, though, that Mickey Arthur will in fact be confirmed as Pakistan's online coach. Remains to be seen how many times he'll be turning up to be there with the team in person, but that's the decision the PCB are taking. There's not much you can do to stop them, although it won't stop a lot of chortling that has come their way from online spaces and elsewhere. Switching our focus now from the world of cricket to the world of football, there's been plenty happening there. Leo Messi, who of course won the World Cup with Argentina and Qatar towards the end of last year, has now spoken out for the first time in an exclusive interview since actually winning the World Cup. He has of course had press interactions and the like, but this is his first exclusive interview, and you can stay tuned to our channel. We'll be doing a separate video on what it is he said, because he said a lot of interesting things. But there's one very interesting thing which he said here. He said that, after so much of suffering and losing finals, God kept the FIFA World Cup of 2022 for me. So that was one thing which he said, and I mean, you understand his point. Don't forget they lost the final 2014. They lost a couple of Copa America finals as well. 2016, in fact, being the most famous, when Messi briefly retired from international football. And he said that God kept this for me. He also did say have one regret. He's saying that I would have liked Diego Maradona to hand me the cup, so he could at least have seen Argentina become champions. Don't forget Maradona passed away in the end of 2020 due to a cardiac arrest. He did, however, pay some more tribute to Maradona, saying that from up above, he gave me strength, as did so many people who loved me. Again, as I said, and this just is one thing which he said. He said a lot of interesting things. Stay tuned to Sports Today. We'll be bringing you a video on what exactly it is he said, because he said a lot of very, very interesting things. Keeping our focus on the world of football, we have some updates on the FA Cup and the draw which is taking place. So Manchester City will be taking on Bristol City in the 5th round after beating Arsenal for 1-0 in the 4th round. Manchester United will be taking on West Ham, who of course West Ham had ended up beating Derby 2-0 at home on Monday. And that could be a tricky fixture as well. But of course, City United will be fancying their chances either which way. Big games for both of them. Interesting matches definitely for both of them. Staying with the Premier League, Everton, who had recently sacked Frank Lampard as manager, have brought in a rather surprising candidate in some ways to replace him. They've brought in former Burnley manager Sean Dyche. Now again, I can understand the logic behind bringing in Dyche on a short-term contract. He's proven to be something of a relegation expert in many ways, or a relegation survival expert, someone who can avoid the drop whilst working with a limited budget. But he's been appointed on a 2.5-year deal, so I don't understand what the logic is. But then again, it's Everton right now. Most of us don't understand what the logic is at that club right now. Last but not least, a little bit of tennis news, and this was along expected lines. But now Novak Djokovic has been confirmed as the top-ranked player in the men's singles, rankings. In the newly released ATP rankings, he, of course, reclaimed the top spot after winning the Australian Open. And Aryna Sabalenka, who had won the women's singles, is now back to second place. Surprisingly, Iga Swiatek does, in fact, retain her top spot. She does retain her top spot in the rankings, despite having a less than stellar Australian Open. But it speaks volumes to how good she was last year, that, even after losing a slam, she's still nowhere near close to being dethroned. Although she would be wanting a better performance come the French Open, or that ranking might very well be in some danger. And that's it from us in this particular edition of the Morning Update. Thank you guys also very much for joining us again. If you enjoy the work that we put in over here at Sports Today, please don't forget, like, share, subscribe, tap that bell icon, leave us a comment. Don't forget to also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And last but not least, don't forget to download the Sports the app. Do join us for more videos through the day. For now though, goodbye.